Hey guys, I'm Ali. How's it going? So first and foremost, this week I won't have any exploration videos up. The last 2 weekends there's been typhoons that have gone through Hong Kong. One was very, very big and one was kind of big, but because it followed the bigger one it was a bit more threatening than I think it normally would be. So because of that, I haven't been going out and exploring and filming stuff over the weekends, naturally, because it's been a natural disaster. And also during the week I've been a little bit hectic, just with stuff going on, so I haven't had time to go out and find new places to show you guys and film. So instead I said this week is going to be a vlog week. I did say I was going to try and do more vlogs again. The vlogs this week, there's going to be two up. One today and I'm hoping one tomorrow. A friend sent me a link to a blog by the Bird Girls, birdgirls.com, link in the description below. The title of the blog was 12 Reasons You Should Never Become an Expat, which I thought was a really interesting take on the whole 10 things I wish I knew before I became an expat kind of cliche blogs. One of the reasons I liked this one was because it was more on the emotional and mental impact of becoming an expat, as opposed to the more physical or material based reasons that a lot of other people write in their blogs. So I thought a lot of them were ones that I was thinking of doing anyway, so I thought I would just comment on this blog and share my experiences with the themes that they've brought up. Now, from the title you can probably tell there are 12 reasons in this blog. That would be quite a lot for me to respond to in one video, so I'm going to do this in two parts, so 6 and 6. So without further ado, let's get into it. I do have my trusty notebook here with me, just in case I forget what I wrote down and the little points that I want to make. Alright, here we go. Number 1. You'll constantly have to build a new community. Yes. Hell yes. To some extent, whenever you meet people as an expat, there are some people that you will keep in contact with and there are some people you won't. There are some people that without that face-to-face contact, the constant physical presence, the two of you just drift apart naturally. That happens all throughout life. That part isn't so much an expat disadvantage as just being an adult disadvantage. But the thing that makes it an expat is that you are physically moving everywhere. So physically you have to keep rebuilding the community you built before. The blog talks about just the fact that people get really busy. You tend to meet people in certain situations and your friendship is based on that situation, and that there is a large variety of people that you meet while traveling, and depending on the type of person that you've met depends on whether or not that friendship will last long term, moving, what have you. So definitely an expat problem with that. You do still have this problem when you move cities or move to just different places within your own country, but the difference being is that as an expat it becomes a lot harder for you to travel to return to your old community, and without that frequency there's a greater risk of you disconnecting, and there is a lot of repetition in recreating communities if you move around a lot. And even just among expats, people get really, really busy. Like, I have a friend here in Hong Kong. She and I met in Shanghai when we both studied Mandarin together, and she is ridiculously busy at her job now in Hong Kong. I don't know if she'd like me saying what she does. So I might leave that out. I'll leave personal details out, but So I moved here in April, and she and I met very soon after. We met up for lunch very soon after I moved here. I think we caught up for lunch again 2 weeks later, and then since then we've had 4 or 5 planned meetups, either get-togethers, birthdays, just after work drinks, what have you. And she's had to cancel pretty much every single time. I've seen her once or twice since April. One time because I had to collect her spare key from her, and second time was she actually made it out to my birthday and then had to leave early because she had work very early the next day. And she actually made herself sick that she works so much. So she's lovely. She and I, very fortunate that she and I met in that situation where, you know, we were just at the same school at the same time, studying the same thing, going through the same struggle with it. And everyone else that I met at the same time, there was about a group of about 7 of us. Just about everyone else from that group, I no longer have communication with. Just, you know, everyone's kind of moved to different countries now. Everyone's doing different things now. That friend that I spoke about and one other have both moved here to Hong Kong, and I've kind of been able to meet up with both of them sporadically. But only this person I spoke about. It'd be so easy if I said her name, but I just want to. I don't know if she'd like me to or not. Just purely because they're busy, we just haven't had time to meet up and reconnect in person. But you also meet a very vast variety of people here in a lot of very different situations. Some of them you'll meet studying, some of them you'll meet if you're organised enough to join a sporting community. Some you'll meet, you know, if you go out to bars a lot. Often these people, you'll only be able to have them as part of your community while you're in that situation. So I had friends that I worked with, people who I worked with back in Tokyo who became friends, who just for the fact that I'm no longer there working with them, teaching at that school, I don't have anything else to talk to them about because all we ever talked about was the school and work. I think that happens all throughout life. It's just kind of a thing of growing up. Like there's people that you met when you're at school who you no longer talk to, and you know, you drift apart. I think that's all natural. I think the expat part is that you know that you continually move around and that people are going to come and go, and your situation mainly is going to force you to recreate your community, your support network over and over again. It does sometimes get easier the more you move, but you just got to be aware that you're never going to have the same amount of support each time you move, and you're going to meet different people each time you move and lose contact with people each time you move. It's just a part of it, can't be helped. Okay, number 2, you're going to be lonely. Yes, absolutely you're going to be lonely. So when I was in Shanghai, I couldn't work in Shanghai because I couldn't get a work visa in China. And so literally out of the 7 days of the week, so my husband Turtle, he would be working, say, 8 to 7, say 12 hours a day. My husband would be working. So he comes home, we have dinner, maybe have a little bit of time to sit around talking, maybe play a card game, maybe watch some TV together or something, and then we go to bed for 6-7 hours, and then he's up in the morning and goes back to work. When he's not there, I don't have anyone to talk to. All of my friends were either from Frisbee, which I'd go to for an hour on Monday nights, or if I had training on Tuesday, there'd be an hour and a half, 2 hours on Thursday afternoon, and maybe on the weekend an hour or 2, depending on what the league format was for that season. That's the only time I would see a lot of my friends, was during that time. And the problem with that is when I see them, they're rushing after work, so there's not a lot of time to sit around and talk to them or meet up before the games. We play the game for an hour, and then everyone's hot and sweaty and tired, and there are some people that would rush back home to shower and then would have something else on, or after a long day at work, some people just don't want to socialise. They've done their socialising quota for the day, so they just go home, and that's fine. I'm not complaining about that. But for a lot of people, often for a lot of expats, you're by yourself a lot. And even if you do have friends, like we were just saying before, adults are busy people. Not many adults are just sitting around at home, waiting for life to happen. That just happens to be me. So yeah, you're going to be lonely, absolutely. Again, I think that can kind of happen a little bit even without being an expat. But I think the biggest difference between being lonely as an expat and just being lonely is that if you're in a place where you've grown up, you already have reputation, you already have a whole life built up around you. And being lonely is often just a matter of feeling like you can't get out there. Oftentimes that's something that you battle with yourself, and that happens. But when you're an expat, you have physically removed yourself from that familiarity, from that community, from that life that you've built up. And so what ends up happening is that even if you do put the effort in to go out, to go and see things, to walk around, depending on how new you are to an area and how quickly you can adapt to it, you're going to be lonely without other options for quite a while. And there's only so much that social media can cover. And as I've spoken about before, social media can actually make the loneliness stronger. You see all your family back home posting things and you're not there. So yeah, definitely a huge disadvantage to becoming an expat is the loneliness. Absolutely. Alright, number 3. Relationships become temporary. Definitely when you're an expat, a lot of things come with an expiry date. And this could be for a number of reasons. It could be just because you've moved somewhere for work, and so you're only going to be there for X amount of months, X amount of years. Or you've moved somewhere yourself and you've said, okay, I'm doing this for a year, I'm doing this until I'm such and such age, I'm doing this until something else happens. That's very, very common as an expat. Even if you don't have any plans as an expat and you're just kind of winging it, there's still a part of you that thinks you're going to go back home eventually, and there's still a part of you that feels like everything is temporary. Relationships is one of them, definitely. Sometimes you don't intend them to be. Like, I had friends back in Tokyo, and I was talking about this just before, and I'll talk a little bit more about it now. There was one person in particular, Koba-chan. I'm going to call her Koba-chan. I never called her Koba-chan in English to her face. I'm calling her that now. So she and I worked together. She was absolutely lovely. She's a gorgeous, gorgeous person. And on my way to work, she would send me an email saying, what are you doing? How's the train? And we'd have lots of inside jokes. And I remember one day I came to work with my hair in a braid, and she said I looked like a Disney princess, because this is back when Frozen was the big thing. So I spent the entire day, every time I saw her, I would sing a Disney song, or be humming something Disney, or just generally annoying her with Disney for the rest of the day because she made that comment. and we had a big laugh about it and such. And yeah, I used to email her not every day, but every other day. And just when I moved away for a time, we kept emailing each other, but eventually they just became really repetitive, and they pretty much just became, "Hi, I'm good. How are you? I'm living here now. It's great. You should come visit. Thanks, bye." And it sucks, but you can actually prevent this from happening with a little bit of effort. And I was talking to my friend Teddy about this recently. Well, not recently, like a month ago. So Teddy and I don't know if I've talked about this before or not. So Teddy and I have known each other since we were about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. We went to kindergarten together in Australia, and then did all of our schooling together after kindergarten. And even after high school, we kept in quite close contact, and we now message each other on Facebook every day. If it's not an actual conversation, it's, you know, sharing a YouTube link, you know, sending pins to each other from Pinterest, what have you. She's the one that did the artwork for this channel, actually. Thank you, Teddy. Yeah, we're still really close. We weren't necessarily, I don't think we're necessarily this close going through our schooling together, but we were very familiar with each other. And it's to the point now that we're both huge fans of Supernatural. And even though we live in different countries, we often organise streaming dates where we both watch at the same time from wherever we are, while commenting to each other on Facebook, which is really, really fun. And that's because, and her and I were speaking about this, about the fact that, you know, when we were in high school together, we had quite a large friends group that we used to share. I think there was about 12 of us used to always hang out. And she's the only one I really talk to anymore. There's 2 other girls I still kind of talk to. And both of them actually came to my wedding. And Teddy. Teddy came to my wedding as well. But I don't talk to them every single day, just because I don't really have anything to talk to them about every single day. Every now and again I send Lala a message. Like, I still have a necklace that she gave me when I was 14 or 15. And I wore it the other day, and I realised I was wearing it and remembered that she gave it to me. So I took a selfie with the necklace and sent it to her and was like, I still have this. And like, that's all it takes. And her and I are, you know, we're back to high school kind of thing. But when I come back, when I go back to home, you know, back to Australia for Christmas and such, if I message them, they'll be happy to meet up with me. But there are so many people I've just lost contact with, and I was close to when I saw them every day, face to face, but because I moved away and I didn't put the effort in, I just left it and, you know, allowed that friendship to stay temporary. It's sometimes it's something you can control, sometimes it's not something you can control. It just happens. And it kind of feeds into that loneliness a little bit. And you know, building the community again and again. But it's a real thing, and it's something that you're susceptible. If you are susceptible, I can't say that word. I hope you know what word I'm trying to say. To being lonely. Being an expat is really not a good choice, unless you really want to face your fear head on and, you know, deal with it. Otherwise, yeah, the loneliness can be really shit if you don't have someone to share it to. You know, well, if you have someone to share it with, you're not lonely. But yeah, I hope you get what I mean. Alright, number four. People back home will move on without you. Yeah, this one's rough. This one's really rough. People will, you know, just because you leave, and the blog actually says this, I'm pretty sure. Just because you leave doesn't mean time freezes. You know, just because you leave, people will keep living their lives. And not everyone puts everything on social media. So, case in point, So last year when I was sending out the invitations to the wedding, there was two friends, a married couple friends back home that I really wanted to come to the wedding. But I need to double check their address, so I sent the message and said, "Hi, I've got, we're getting married next, September, and I would really love it for the two of you to come. I want to send you the invitation. Can I just double check what your address is?" And my friend actually turned around to me and he goes, do you mean the two of us? And I was like, yeah. He's like, do you not know? And I was like, what do you mean do I not know? I don't know what. So it turns out they had actually separated and were in the middle of getting a divorce. And apparently it had been happening for like a year. And because I hadn't been there, I didn't know about it because I wasn't seeing them every day anymore, and they weren't putting it on Facebook, social media, and only people close to them knew what was happening because they wanted to. They had just changed as people. They didn't have a big fight. There wasn't a big falling out or anything like that. It was just they were both changing, and their relationship just wasn't the same for them anymore. And that happens. That's fine. That's no one's fault. They were very amicable about it. They were both seeing other people, and they were both fine with seeing other people. So here I was trying to invite a divorcing couple to my wedding because I didn't know that their lives had changed. Both of them came to the wedding, and both of them brought their new partners to the wedding, and I got permission from both of them. I checked both of them first. I'm like, do you mind if he comes with his new her? Do you mind if she comes with her new him? They were both very, very, happy for each other to be there, and I imagine it was a little bit awkward for them, and I do feel bad for that. But they both kept that to themselves, and if they felt that, and didn't let that impact what else was happening. But it's just one of those things that, I remember going on double dates with them, and going to their house, and when they had housewarmings and barbecues, and spending time with them as a couple and knowing them as a couple. I'm pretty sure they've been married for the entire time I've known them. And so the fact that had changed, and it had been changing for a whole year, and I didn't know because I wasn't there, that's really hard. And it's not just the people it changes, and the blog talks about this as well. Every time I go home, places change. So Melbourne's one of those places that, this week there'll be a cafe in Building A. Next week there'll be, it'll be a sushi bar or some kind of secondhand shop or something. Everywhere I know in Melbourne, my favorite ice cream places, my favorite cafes, burger shops, what have you, they've all changed in some way, but be it they've closed or new management, or they're just not how I remember them. That's just part of it. When you leave and become an expat, you change. You can't expect what you left behind to not change as well. So, and that goes for friends, families, places. That's a really sucky thing about being an expat. And it's one of those things that you don't have any control over. You can't expect it. You never prepare yourself for high school friends to have babies. You never prepare yourself for good friends to get divorced. That's a horrible thing to prepare yourself for, but it does happen, and you just have to be prepared yourself to adapt to it, to acknowledge it, and not let yourself feel bad that you missed it. You're gonna miss a lot of things because life keeps going. But just because you missed it when it happened doesn't mean you can't catch up. it is possible with a little bit of effort and some good coffee. You can catch up with people, so keep that in mind. Number 5 is you can't have pets or keep household plants. This one I disagree with a little bit. It's a challenge. It is definitely a challenge. A lot of places, especially here in Asia, well, in Japan in particular, I found this. It was very, very hard to find places to rent that allowed pets, especially if you weren't a Japanese person. I remember a friend of mine, a girl I used to work with in Japan, she moved over with her cat, and the company that we worked for was able to help everybody else find accommodation where they were assigned. But they couldn't help her because the real estate agent they worked with didn't allow pets. And didn't have any properties that would allow pets. So she had to really struggle by herself to find somewhere that would allow her to live with her cat. Meanwhile, her cat was kept in quarantine, which is a really difficult thing. I'm not sure what eventuated from that. If she ended up, I think for a time she did live with her cat, but then she moved back to the States, and I think she just left her cat there. She took her cat back to the States before she moved back to Japan again. But I do know people who travel with pets. There's a couple of people in Shanghai I knew that had dogs. I didn't talk too much to them about it, but I do know every time they had to travel somewhere, be it for work or for little excursions or for frisbee tournaments and stuff, they would have to find someone to mind their dogs. They would have to find someone to care for the animal, or would have to pay professionals to care for and mind them. Even Turtle's parents, they have a dog, and every time they come and visit us, they've got to put the dog in like a pet hotel, and they've had problems with their dog's sprained his leg less than an hour after being at the pet hotel. Got sick because another dog at the pet hotel was sick. There's a lot of challenges involved if you're a person that travels a lot and having a pet. But it can be done. If you're willing to do it, it can be done. There's a lady I knew in Shanghai who lived in a building next door to mine. Granted, she was a vet, so she knew what she was doing, but she and her family of 4 traveled with 2 cats, and they were kind of those big, almost little dog kind of cats. But because she was a vet, she knew exactly what she needed to do whenever they had to travel with them. So the cats had their own passports, their own paperwork and everything, and she knew exactly what quarantine measures she needed to do for each of them to get them through customs. And I think every time they moved, she would take the cats back to the States and keep them at her parents' or her sister's house for a time, and then take them again instead of constantly moving them every new place. So pets, it's difficult. There's a lot of things you have to consider, but it can be done. Same with plants. The most difficult thing with plants is that you have to find somewhere to rehome them unless you want to let them die when you leave. Depending on the size of the plants, that's sometimes very easy and sometimes can be a little bit challenging. I had plants in Japan. I even had like an indoor tree, and I was able to rehome them all before we left. Here in Hong Kong, I have like a little box of herbs and a little lemon tree out in the balcony. No trouble at all. You can keep them. For most places, you can't take them with you when you move, so you do have to rehome plants. But if you check customs requirements first. Sometimes it's okay, but check customs first. So I disagree with that one. That's not a disadvantage to being an expat. It's just another thing that you have to prepare for. So yeah. Alright, lucky last, the 6th one. You can't hoard items. Can somebody tell Turtle this? Because Turtle is a massive hoarder. Yeah, so as the blog says, being an expat strongly encourages the minimalist lifestyle. The more things you have, the harder it is to sometimes move. And the blog also mentions that, and I fully agree with this, the items that you have in your house often make it feel like a home. I know every time I move somewhere, it doesn't feel like home until I've put photos up, until I've covered a wall in photos, you know, and I have all the little knickknacks all over the bookcase. I don't feel like I'm home. And yeah, it's a real struggle when you're moving, because you have to go through everything again and work out, okay, is it worth keeping this map for the French metro or the Paris metro? Do I need this pamphlet from when we visited the London Bridge? You accumulate so much stuff when you're traveling. Some of it's really valuable to you sentimentally. Some things you should have thrown out a long time ago and it's just purely been gathering dust. There are some things that you find that are useful, but you know are easy to rebuy, easy and cheap to rebuy when you move, so it's not really worth the cost to move it in the first place. That happens. I know when we left Japan and we left Tokyo, I had a lot of things because we were planning to stay there for a long time. And when we went to move, they said we could only have 12 boxes, and we weren't really told how big the boxes were and stuff. So I was very, very harsh in getting rid of a lot of stuff, especially kitchen utensils, because I'm like, kitchen utensils you can generally buy everywhere. But yeah, then we found that we didn't need to get rid of these things. We could have kept some things and gotten rid of other things, and especially books. Even if you're not someone that reads a lot, you end up getting a lot of books when you move around. Either buying them or being given them. So that's the real struggle, is especially heavy things like books. But yeah, you can't hoard things. So if it's not important and doesn't serve a purpose other than making your house feel like a home, you have to get rid of it. Like, it's very often it's not a choice. There's only so many boxes of stuff you can leave in your parents' garage. Trust me, they start getting angry after a while. So yeah, it can get really difficult at that stage. Alright guys, so that's the first 6 points from this blog. Please check it out. I'll put the link in the description below. Let me know what you think about the points in the blog and what I've spoken about today, my responses to it. I will try to get the second half of this out by tomorrow or Friday, if I can. Alright, that's all from me. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later.